Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I'm here to do what I hope will be a fun, chatty video, and that is talking about horror books that I thought I was going to absolutely love because they checked all of my boxes, they were full of my bookish, buzzy words, and when I went to read them, well, they missed the mark and they just didn't end up working for me. I know I've had that experience many times before, and I prepared a list of books, and I'd also love to hear from all of you in the comments down below, what is a horror book or a book just in general that you thought you were absolutely going to love and completely disappointed you. I know on booktube we make a lot of these 5-star prediction videos, so this is basically the results of that. These are books that I thought were going to be 5 stars and, well, definitely turned out not to be. All that being said, let's get into the books. First, let's start with a real heartbreaker, and that is Such a Pretty Smile by Christina Meester. And this book literally was on a 5-star prediction video that I filmed before. This book follows a small town where the women of this town are plagued by a creature or supernatural entity that is hunting them down. But not just any of the women, specifically it targets the women that do not comply with society's norms and expectations. They refuse to sit down and smile pretty and shut up. And I was very excited to read this one because I've read the author's debut novel, which is one of my favorite horror novels, so I was really excited to read this one. And you know me, I love feminist, fierce horror, and so I really thought that this one was going to be a new favorite. I was so excited. I think I hyped it in about 7 videos before I actually got around to reading it. And while I will say it's not terrible, it really let me down, and that's because I expected it to be really uncomfortable, really disturbing, and I felt like the author really played it safe. The first book I read by her was one that was published by a small press, and I feel like she really just went there and went down some really disturbing, dark roads in terms of the subject matter that she addressed. And in this book, I just felt like it was really tamed and like pulled back in and just felt like a very safe, traditionally published book, which again left me disappointed because I know that this author can really get under my skin when she wants to, and this one just felt, yeah, I keep using the word safe, but it's exactly how I felt about this book, which left me hugely disappointed because again, I hyped it to the 9s, which was probably my fault to begin with. Next up, we have Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, and this is actually my ARC copy. I didn't love the book enough to buy a published, finished copy for myself because obviously this book disappointed me, otherwise it wouldn't be in this video. But in the story, we follow a woman who is the lone survivor of a terrible accident that went wrong. There was a group of salvagers that went out to investigate this ship that they found, and of course when they got on the ship, strange things started to happen, and it's basically set up like a space horror or haunted house story set in space, which sounded amazing. You know me, I'm always on the lookout for the next great space horror book because in my opinion, it's a very underserved genre or subgenre, and it just doesn't get enough love. It doesn't have enough great books coming out despite our love of space horror. I don't know why it is so hard for the industry to put out more books. And so this one had the setup that was amazing, but the book did not deliver. I don't want to spoil it for those of you that haven't read this book, but in my opinion, this book is not horror. It's a thriller, a psychological thriller, and one with a really predictable tropey ending or twist to it, which I just did not love. So the more I think about this book, the less I like it. I gave it a mediocre review, and again, as time's gone on, I'm kind of getting more and more annoyed by this one. So definitely a huge disappointment here. Next up, we have Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead, and this is a piece of literary horror that follows a young man who is visiting his family in the city of New York when there is a zombie outbreak. If you don't know that I am a huge fan of zombie fiction, well, yes, I am, and so zombies alone is enough reason for me to pick up a book, and more I've come to appreciate literary fiction when it crosses over with my favorite genres of speculative fiction, so I really thought this one was going to be right up my alley. I knew it was by a Black author, and a lot of Own Voices stories have worked, again, really well. I've really connected with them and enjoyed the social commentary that they're trying to do, and so this book, in my mind, was positioned to be a great read. I saw the ratings on Goodreads, and they weren't great, but once again, there are so many times that I like unpopular books, so I didn't let that steer me away. I went in, and well, I was very disappointed. For someone who loves zombie fiction, I actually appreciate a lot of books where the zombies are more in the background and instead is much more about the characters and the larger focus or theme surrounding humanity and the terrible things we do to each other. But in this case, this was just a social commentary on capitalism, and the author got very, very preachy. And it's not to say that I actually disagreed with a lot of what the author was saying, but I found that the way it was written was so in your face. The author was literally on a soapbox talking with all of his opinions so loudly that it just took away from the story, and it really frustrated me. And again, I didn't even necessarily disagree with what he was saying. I just wanted to read the story and enjoy it and have those conversations be more nuanced, which they weren't. It was just heavy-handed, and the story itself really fell to the wayside. Not one I personally would recommend. Next, we have Eat Your Heart Out by Kelly DeVoe, and this is a piece of young adult horror. And the only thing that should have been a tip-off for me is the fact that it is YA horror, which is not usually my all-time favorite. But this is a story about a fat camp, so a place where people are sent if they are expected to lose weight. So it follows a group of teenagers that go to this camp, and a zombie outbreak occurs. And I'll be honest, the zombie outbreak alone, again, is a reason enough for me to pick up a book and to hope it's going to be a favorite. But I also am someone who really loves body positivity in my fiction. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart, is acceptance of different body types and all of that. And so given that undertone, that theme that was supposed to go under the whole book, I really thought this one is one that I would love. And I'll say that it was all right. It wasn't absolutely terrible, but despite having, again, so many of my check boxes checked, it just fell really flat. It was more cute than scary, which I kind of expected, but overall I was just, really let down. And I'll be honest, I was pretty bored by the end. I kind of just like pushed through to finish it up, and it just was not very memorable. So unfortunately, another one to skip. Then I want to talk about The Omen by David Seltzer. And this is a pretty famous book because of the movie, but it follows a young boy who is possibly the Antichrist. And this is a story that I thought I was gonna love because I adore horror books involving creepy children. However, this one did not work well for me because of the fact that we as the reader know that there's something wrong with the boy going into the story. It's called The Omen. You kind of know the setup. Like, I feel like it's a book where it's not a surprise what is going on. But what frustrated me with this book is that the author spends a lot of time in the narrative trying to convince the reader that this boy is normal, that nothing is wrong. And it just felt like a lot of wasted time with misdirection, and it just didn't really work well for me. I much prefer when an author decides to bring his readers in on the joke or in on what is going on, and then you get to watch the story unfold. So it just felt very frustrating that I felt like it was supposed to be this big twist when, things were revealed, and you knew it from the beginning. But the author just didn't write it the way I wanted it, I guess. So I was really underwhelmed with this one. Not a favorite. I thought I was gonna love it. I thought it was gonna be super scary, and totally missed the mark for me. Next we have I Am Not a Serial Killer by Dan Wells, and this is a horror novel that follows a man who is obsessed with serial killers, and he is convinced that he has the predisposition to be one himself, and so he tries very hard not to, but at the same time he's just very much attracted to the dead and all of the different things surrounding serial killer life. And this book on paper sounded perfect for me. I love serial killer stories, at least in fiction. I find them fascinating. I thought this was a really unique take on one. I thought the narrative perspective was fantastic. The setup was all there. But then in terms of the execution, I found this book to be a little bit flat. It's very fast and action paced, and I think I would have preferred if it was a bit more psychological, a bit more in the character's head, and instead it's just this non-stop action ride, and I really just didn't love how it was done. So again, it's such potential, an amazing idea, but I wanted it to be carried out differently. And so once again, I've said it with every book in this video, but I was left so incredibly disappointed, which is again, so frustrating. And I also want to talk about Zombie by Joyce Carol Oates. And despite the title, I went into this book knowing that it wasn't about zombies, so no, that is not the reason I was disappointed. Instead, I was aware that this book is told from the perspective of a psychopath and a serial killer. And again, from that setup, I thought I was going to absolutely love this book because I tend to really like stories told from the bad guy's perspective. I really like unique perspectives in general when it comes to narrative writing. And I've heard this book is one of the the most disturbing book that many people have read, and it's been recommended to me many, many times. So I was very excited to pick it up, and I'll be honest, I was very disappointed because it just did not work for me. The narrative style is very fragmented, which in some cases can work well for me. I can find that to be very unsettling, but in this case, it just really annoyed me and made me want to go and get a pen and start editing the book for the author. And so it just really took me out of the story, and for whatever reason, it just did not connect with me. I didn't love it. And again, so disappointed because I tend to really like disturbing books, and this one just, I don't know, it just did not work at all. Anyway, moving right along. Finally, we have My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, and this is a novel that is set in the 1980s following two female best friends. One of the friends has something happen and she possibly becomes possessed, and then the best friend is left trying to help her and seek out help to get her possibly exorcised. This is a book that I so badly want to love, and I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I've said before on my channel, if you follow me, that I don't always love the way that Grady Hendrix writes stories. I think he has brilliant ideas, but the way he writes his narratives just don't fully connect with me. I just find myself always left on the outside, and I never feel overly attached to the story or characters. But this one had so much potential that I really thought it was going to work. I really love stories surrounding female friendship. Obviously, as a woman myself, it's something that I tend to really connect with. As I've said, I also really like stories set in the 80s. I love the nostalgia that brings in. And possession and exorcism is one of my all-time favorite subgenres of horror. So this book literally hit every single marker of a story that I should love, and yet for whatever untangible reason, whatever it is with Grady Hendrix writing, it just did not work for me. I have tried reading this book several times. I finished it, but I've tried rereading it and I still cannot get into it, and I want so badly to love it. I adore the covers of these books. I want to own a copy, but I don't really want to reread it. So I know this is an incredibly unpopular opinion, but I just don't love this book. So that is it for this video here. I know I normally try to keep my videos positive and share recommendations. So instead, I would love to ask you all, what is a book, whether it be horror or another genre, that you really thought you were gonna love based off the synopsis, your taste in books and all of that, and then completely let you down and just wasn't what you expected? Also, if you're new to my channel and want to stick around, I do read a lot of horror, thriller, science fiction, fantasy, and normally I'm talking about things that I do enjoy and would recommend to you all. So I hope you consider staying around. And if you want to help me out with this video, you can give me a thumbs up, share it around online, hit that notification bell so that you never miss a video from me. And you can also drop a comment like a zombie so that I know you're here, and it helps out the YouTube algorithm with its mysterious ways. All that being said, thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.